Thank you everybody for joining our session today. I can see a lot of you are starting to put messages into the chat box, which is fab. Please do use that chat box to introduce yourselves. Let us know whereabouts you are in the country, what sport or club you represent or organisation. Maybe ask some questions in there of one another or questions throughout the session as well. We want to keep this as interactive as possible. Today, we're going to be looking at crowdfunding and how that could be a real benefit to obviously raise the money that you need in order to make your idea happen for your sports club or organisation. We'll also be talking through the added benefits as well of crowdfunding. There's just a few housekeeping points to go through before we get started. We have allowed an hour for this session, and that does include a Q&A at the end. So as I've mentioned, please do use that chat box or even the Q&A box, which you should find at the bottom of your screen, in order to ask some questions in there, and we'll get through as many of those as we can throughout the session. This is live, however, we are recording the whole webinar, so we'll be able to forward that to you by way of a follow-up email with all of the links to resources that we discuss as well throughout today's session. If you find that you do have any issues with your connection, then please do exit the webinar, follow the link to rejoin, and you should come straight back into the live room. Do, as I say, put any questions that you have about the content that we're going through into the Q&A box if you can, or alternatively, the chat box. We'll make our way through that. We've been joined by some wonderful panelists today. We've got Nadine from Sport England, who's going to talk through the extra funding available through Sport England and your potentially eligible crowdfunding campaign. So super exciting match funding opportunity. And we've also been joined by the wonderful Martina from TR7 Skatepark, CIC, who've recently crowdfunded with us, and they're actually at a really exciting point of their project now, just getting ready to fully kind of deliver on that and actually open the park. So a really great time to be talking to a project owner about their experience of crowdfunding and actually bringing that project to life. So do, as I say, have some questions in mind for her as well. Okay, let's get underway with the idea of crowdfunding. So for some of you out there, you may already be used to using crowdfunding platforms, not necessarily our own, but you might have similar experience with maybe Just Giving, for example, where you can digitally kind of raise money or crowdfund in order to make a project or idea happen for the club. Now, we at Crowdfunding UK, it's a similar principle. We are a crowdfunding platform. The one kind of standout for us over those other platforms, I guess, is that we are a rewards-based crowdfunding platform primarily. And what that does is it means that you as clubs and organisations, you can actually add rewards onto your project that people can claim on. A reward is a benefit of some kind in return for a financial contribution. And we'll look at the different types of things you could add as a reward later on in the session. But just to bear in mind that it can be a really great way to incentivize your supporters to maybe give a little bit more, or it might be that you're appealing with your rewards to a wider audience and not just your kind of primary club members. So that could be things like memberships or discounted memberships for your members, but it can also be engaging with your local business community in order to actually have some rewards gifted or donated to your page that you can list, and then your supporters can claim on those. And Martina's actually had some brilliant experience with this and some really lovely examples. So we'll talk to her in a bit more detail about the types of things that they had on their project. Those benefits of crowdfunding that I mentioned at the top of the session are really important to bear in mind when you're thinking about a crowdfunding campaign. Of course, you want to raise the money that you need to make your project happen. That's going to be your primary focus. It's good to have an idea of these as well, because for a lot of people, these come at a bit of a surprise. So first and foremost, it can really help to validate your idea by creating a crowdfunding campaign and going out to your community to shout about the wonderful work that you do already and what you're trying to do if you can actually raise the money to make it happen. It can help build confidence in your idea, so that's you as project owners, and also build the confidence of your community around you. It's going to see if there is actually an appetite for what you're hoping to do. So it can be a really low risk way of testing the water to see if what you're trying to achieve is actually going to bring the positive impacts that you're hoping to achieve, and if there's going to be an appetite and people that are willing and wanting to see it happen. You'll also create awareness around your idea and potentially around the club or the organisation by, as I say, having that real kind of supporter-focused campaign page that you're promoting and sharing. People will get a really good sense of who you are as an organisation, the wonderful things that you do, your existing community impact, the sport that you practice, and also it may well help get you noticed by a wider audience. So we will encourage you to really network and promote this project beyond your core club members, and that's going to create a buzz around what you're doing and get people excited to actually see this project come to fruition. Now, everybody that donates or claims a reward on your page, or maybe even just shares it for you, shares it into their social media channels, for example, will automatically become an advocate for your project. They will go on to talk about you and the wonderful things that you're doing with their friends and family, colleagues, and that's going to naturally build a really engaged audience. That can also lead to some connected, meaningful connections. So that could be local businesses that start conversations about maybe sponsorship or partnering further down the line. And we've had some really great examples of just that, especially with sports clubs, where they've gone out and spoken to the local community, and then maybe there's been like a trade shop, for example, who said, actually, we've got some ex-display kitchen units and we know that you're redeveloping the clubhouse, so why don't we gift those to you in kind, and we can kind of come and fit those for you. And that's that really lovely partnership that might not have happened unless they'd actually had eyes on that crowdfunding campaign and learnt about what the club was doing through promoting that campaign. The project owners, so that's all of you, will learn new skills, I imagine. For some of you, the concept of fundraising digitally might be something that you're not particularly familiar with. We have lots of tools and resources to enable you to not only create and run a really engaging page, but to promote that effectively, network, create engaging content. We know what works, essentially. So we've kind of formulated everything and made it really accessible for you. And these are skills that you can transfer into different areas of club life as well, especially with things like, that promotion and networking and even scheduling of events, online events, all these things that you might not be already doing. We can help you to do that and engaging, the media and things like that. And then the main focus for the majority of you here today is going to be the extra funding and support that we have available. So we'll be talking through the offer from Sport England today. We do also have extra funding, so that's match funding, essentially, opportunities from different organisations up and down the country. If your project is eligible, you will be matched with any of our extra funding partners, and you can apply for those through your crowdfunding campaign. It can be a really wonderful boost to your fundraising efforts, and it can really help you, again, to make those connections that might last then going forward. So some of our match funding partners may well be a local authority that's local to you, and that can again help to build those conversations and those partnerships going forward. And again, the project we're featuring today, they were really fortunate and supported by 4 different pots of extra funding. You don't have to just apply for one. You can receive pledges from multiple extra funding partners. So a really, really good boost if you're eligible. In terms of crowdfunding for sport, we know it works incredibly well. We've got a really flourishing partnership with Sport England, and we see lots of sports related projects come through the platform. So that might be sports clubs, it could be organisations, it could be groups of volunteers that are doing a particular sport and bringing things up to a standard in which they want to then kind of push the sport forward. In terms of why it works for sport, there's a few key reasons. One is you already have an engaged audience. Just by the nature of sport, you will already have people who are playing or involved with the sport, people who are supporters of that sport and spectators, and the family members of all of those people. So you've already got a really core engaged audience to tap into. The other reason it works really well is by nature, not only are those that are engaged with this within the sport, super passionate, the chances are they're quite competitive too. So harnessing that competitive nature and actually using that to the advantage of the campaign is a really good idea. Running fundraising events, maybe putting on a fundraising challenge and getting everybody to set up their own fundraisers linked to the main page is a great thing to do. Incentivizing people to get behind the project. So maybe run a fundraising day where there might be a prize for the team that can raise the most, or just generally thinking about how to bring those people in to collaboratively raise the money. That is the best way to run a crowdfunding campaign, is all about collaboration and working together. The more people feel a part of this fundraising exercise with you, the more chance you have of success. Just looking a little bit at the numbers before we talk to the wonderful Martina. So our impact so far, working just with sports clubs, we see around, well, we have seen just over 4,000 sports clubs that have come and actually crowdfunded with us. They've raised more than £26 million now. We're looking probably closer towards the 30 million mark. And they've had way over 300,000 supporters just backing those sports projects. And in terms of our extra funding sports partners, so we're not including here any of our other national or regional partners, any of those local authorities, we've been able to, in partnership with them, distribute more than £8.4 million worth of match funding, or extra funding as we call it. So a really exciting opportunity as sports projects to kind of get on board, use Crowdfunding UK in order to raise the money and hopefully utilise and access that match funding too. Now, somebody who knows all about that and has done it incredibly well is the wonderful Martina from TR7 Skate. Hi, Martina, how are you?
Hello.
Hello, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you're super busy. So would you mind telling everybody, because you're busy, because you are at the point of your project now where you're actually being able to start thinking about building and opening, would you mind telling everybody here a little bit more about your project and where you're at with it all now?
Yeah, sure. So we started the project as a bit of a skate shop, no, to just have somewhere for the skaters to come and get a new skateboard. And then, well, since the sport became an Olympic sport, no, skateboarding became an Olympic sport in the last Olympics, we started getting loads of inquiries to do lessons, and that's how we found our first location in Newquay to do a little indoor skate park where people could come and learn. And it worked really well for us. Unfortunately, we came to the end of the lease and we needed to find a new location. And with that in mind, well, we thought of crowdfunding, which was second time for us as well. And yeah, it worked really well for us in trying to get all the community involved in the project and helping us raise the funds that we needed to start building, no, which now we are at that point, thank God. It's
been a long, busy road for you.
Yeah, but
over the last year. In terms of the crowdfunder itself then, you said there about kind of engaging the community, which was really, you can see with the numbers, so you had 382 different people kind of get behind you and support you, which is massive. How did you find the process? What did you find easy, or was there anything you found particularly difficult about the crowdfunding campaign?
Well, I think that the most difficult bit is trying to communicate it, no, and trying to get the people really involved and making them feel part of the project, I guess, and transmitting that energy that you want them to be part, even if it's the 1 penny that they are donating, no. It was a really good thing to do, to kind of like divide all the people that we could reach, no, like if it's family and friends, or if it's, I think that Crowdfunder has a really good guideline, no, of how to also help organize yourself in that sort of way. And yeah, connecting first with the family and the friends that you know, and then also getting some influencers or people that are in the area quite popular because they do a sport or because they are bit of like a popular personality, no? They've helped massively as well in spreading the word about the project, and yeah, and getting the video done as well was quite a challenge, but video is really important as well to kind of transmit again, no, that sense of community and belonging that you want to make everyone feel part of your project, I guess. But all in all, it is a learning curve, no? It's impossible to know how to do it all, but it's always good to kind of get also some ideas from other crowdfunder pages that are doing are looking to do something similar to you or on the same industry. That also really helped us. We've looked a little bit as well at Pitt Street, no, that they did also an amazing job, and yeah, and connecting in town with different small businesses and different companies that also could donate to us, and they could also help spread the word was really important, no?
Yeah, you're so right. And I've just, for everybody on the call, I'll make sure I share it as well in the follow-up email. But if you have a look at the resources tab at the bottom of your screen, if you click on resources, and there's a section called links, and you will find the TR7 Skatepark project in there. I suggest you have a little look and see at those wonderful rewards that Martina and the team managed to source. You mentioned there talking to local businesses and particularly smaller businesses, those that are actually, it helps them as much as it does you, kind of giving them that platform to promote. I think was really good.
Exactly, even if it's like a coffee or like a breakfast from, I don't know, we've got some sauna sessions, or we got some don't know, like ropes done as well. We were trying to thinking everyone in the community that would be supporting, no, parents, kids, teenagers, try and offer something for a variety of different people that could be supporting the project, not just the audience that you believe is going to be, no, your audience, as it's a community. We want to get as many people and as many different ages and genders and everyone sort of making them feel part of the project, I guess.
I think you did that incredibly well. And being from the area in which your skate park was originally, and still kind of in the wider area of your new skate park, it was felt in the community. It was a buzz, that buzz that we talk about. People were talking, you know, on social media about, oh, have you heard what's happening? And you managed to do that really effectively. Some of your rewards as well, which I love, which I have here and I'm going to hold up, is your limited merchandise. So that was a really good idea. So here we go, everybody.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, doing like specific, only one items, limited edition, so that people feel like they're gonna be part of this specific part of the process, no? Nice. Yeah, so like they can also remember, oh, I have these because of that time I've helped them with a crowdfunder, and that kind of also make them feel a bit more part of it, no? I think that it's also really important to create some events, no? Also sharing that you're doing a crowdfunder, like the one that we did in Whiskers, no? We did an event where we were just trying to push, we're doing a crowdfunder, we're fundraising, and we need your help now. Because of course you do also have a certain period of time to do crowdfunding to make it more attractive to people. And also something that I wish I pushed a little bit more is getting fundraisers involved in like putting the t-shirt on as well, and trying to raise some funds for it. I guess that I was focusing in other bits and I couldn't really focus there a lot, but we did had a couple of fundraisers that put up some ideas and did try to put their little energy on trying to do something to help as well, no?
Yeah, you did. And I think that that's a really good point, actually, and something for everyone to bear in mind, that you can, if you want to, become a multiplier project. And that's what TR7 did. And we see happen a lot of times with sports projects. If you request to become a multiplier, people can actually fundraise on your behalf, a bit like you would do with like a charity appeal. People can look at your page, click become a fundraiser and then be prompted to set up their own fundraisers. And that's all linked directly to your main project page. And you did have a couple, didn't you?
Yeah, I think quite a couple, but like, yeah, I wish I promoted them a bit earlier than I did, because it can be just someone walking a kilometer or a mile, or like something really quick and simple. No, it doesn't need to be for the whole time, the whole period we're fundraising, but it's so cool to have that option to make people also be part of the fundraising, not just in donating, but also doing something that could also bring more funds to the actual project. No, because it's all connected. So if they fundraise, it kind of shows it as well on your page, and it helps you reach that target. That also in match funding, it's also a requirement, no, when you're doing match funding.
Exactly. And that leads me on really nicely to the match funding. So you did receive money from Sport England. Cornwall Council got involved with a couple of different pots of money, and Devon and Cornwall Police as well. How did you find, and I know that outside of this, you've been having to write bids and do grant applications to kind of get all of this off the ground. So the crowdfunder was a part of a bigger kind of fundraising effort, wasn't it? How does applying for the extra funding on the crowdfunder website kind of compare to that bid writing experience? Would you say it's a little bit easier, a bit more straightforward?
So much easier, yes. And I'm so glad that existed, no, because in every time you have to get into a new grant or a new application, it's a completely different world depending on each organization and the grant that you are requesting. So crowdfunder really helped us in that way. And well, the questions are quite straightforward, and you also have the actual page of the crowdfunder as part of your application. So you don't have to type again and again and again what you're about and what your project is about. And yeah, I think it's quite straightforward. And yeah, it was good to have that option rather than have to go and do it on a separate basis. And well, it was Sports England, like you said, Cornwall Council Social Inclusion Fund, and Devon and Cornwall Police, I believe, no? Now we got a few other community counselors fund that was also really helpful to have through crowdfunder, but you also have to try and connect with those counselors directly, you know, to sort of help you with that application to happen, no, I guess.
Yeah.
We
have just had a question specifically for you, Martina. So a couple of questions. How long did your crowdfunding project take? So how long did you run it for?
I think we've run it for 3 weeks. Well, it says 35 days here, but I believe it was 3 weeks.
I think so. The 35 days is because it's still live. You're still, because you're a multiplier, it shifts it to being always on, so people can always donate to it, which is great.
Always on. Yeah. I believe it was 3 weeks. Yeah, that we've done it. Originally, we wanted to do it for 2, but then with the project being so big and not sure how much we were gonna be able to reach, we've extended it to 3, and because of the match funding as well, sometimes it can take a little bit to get an answer from match funding. So we've allowed ourselves that extra week to get the answers from these match funding applications. Some of them were done before we even released the crowdfunder as well, and we still had to wait for that process to be done. So yeah, also being mindful of the extra funding that it's available and what you can apply to. It's always good to, I think it was an advice I got from you as well, to try and get some of them nailed down and make sure if they are available, if they would be able to support us and kind of look at what sort of target is more reachable, rather than just putting a random number out there and not really achieving, knowing how much you can also get by the extra funding, no? It was key to do those applications before we we've went live, no, I would say.
Yeah, that's really, really good advice. And that's something we'll talk about in the session as well. It just gives you all an idea of what those milestones that you might need to hit are and what those kind of overall goal posts are. And it's a great message to go live and say, you know, Sport England are going to support us when we hit X, Y, and Z. It just creates momentum straight off the bat with going live. And then the other question we had from Louise was, how many people were in your marketing team for the TR7 crowdfunder?
Not
I think
many.
I know the answer to this.
I think it was only 2 of us. But we also got some volunteers with like press releases and like getting someone behind the camera as well, with helping with recording the video as well. So there is a small team anyways, but it was also a collaboration with some volunteers and some people that were really keen to also share ideas with us, no? And when we put something on Instagram, we will get people offering more rewards or offering help if they needed help, if we needed help in an event, no? So it's a matter of getting a plan, and once you have the plan, then figuring out if you will need more people for one thing rather than the other, no? I guess.
Yeah,
It's a tricky bit to organize that.
I think by nature, like you and the TR7 team you are those people that we talk about when we're saying about crowdfunding campaigns, is try and have somebody within your team or somebody you can reach out to who can really kind of put their personality across, that might already have a bit of influence on social media. And I think the way that you did your kind of warm-up promotion and those videos that Chaz created, kind of, you know, rallying everybody together and saying, this is coming, keep an eye out for what we're doing, watch this space. And the fact that you and the rest of the TR7 team are kind of prominent at different events, and you'll make sure that you're having those conversations at the local skate park or whatever is
being out
happening.
there. That's
Being the faces
point.
of your project, I think was what was really key. And that's why people will get behind a project. They get behind the people as much as they do the idea. And
100%.
I think evident
Not
with you guys.
mention them videos that Chas did, and like having his face on it and really trying to transmit that that moment we were going through, really connected with people. No, we had loads of really good feedback of those videos where you can do like a selfie video, no, and really talk to the camera, and people feel like you're actually talking to them and getting them involved in that way. That worked really well as well. And trying to give updates as well on Crowdfunder, making sure you keep everyone updated. I actually need to do one soon. But yeah, I think that was also key to also communicate to the supporters and let them know what you've been achieving whilst you're still crowdfunding, sorry. It's key, no? It's really important to keep asking them, share our page and share our project and our idea, to get as many people involved while you have those 3 weeks live.
You're so right though, what you're saying about having to, you know, still posting updates. So I imagine that you're going to update everyone and let them know about the build, or let them know when you're going to be opening. And it becomes a group of people that you have now as a core audience. So those supporters, by posting updates to your campaign page, even after the close of your campaign, they're still going to want to know what happens. So yeah, being able to post to them and say, you know, we're here, we're about to cut the ribbon on the opening, come and see us. That's all really important too. So that's great to hear that you're going to still be posting updates.
Yeah.
In terms of, I'm just a little bit conscious of time, in terms of any kind of key advice that you have for those people on the call today about starting a crowdfunder, maybe they're not quite sure if it's for them. Do you have any advice from your experience for those that are here today?
I think the best advice, it's just like you guys have all those resources, really using them, and really try to have a plan of what is going to be happening on each week and how you can push it in different ways. Like if it's going to be through a press release, if it's going to be through an influencer, if it's going to be through an event, there's a few different things that we've mentioned, no, that can really push and make the momentum longer, no, rather than just have the momentum for 1 week. Try to have that momentum going for those 3 weeks is the most difficult bit. But if you have a plan where you can say on week 1, we're gonna push these 2 things and so, it kind of really helps to keep the momentum going, and just really talking to everyone around you and all the businesses that can provide you with rewards, making them part of that and offering them some sort of advertisement when you are promoting the rewards on social media or promoting the crowdfunder. Also mention them, so make sure they also get something for the donation they've done, no?
That's really good advice. Thank you. It's a community effort, isn't it? It's all about collaboration and mutually beneficial promotion. So you want them to shout about you, you're going to shout about how great they are, and together you're going to do this awesome thing. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and like I said, the limited edition items were like the ones that will go the quickest. If it's a beanie or if it's a bottle opener or like a magnet for your fridge, anything that it's for that moment, that limited edition thing, I feel like, yeah, it really pops up.
Yeah, I think I told you in a different conversation, but I got these beanies for my children, and one of them wore them to school, and a friend who didn't manage to have one has been pestering her for weeks and weeks and weeks. Can I get a limited edition? Where did you get it? It's like, you didn't donate to the crowdfunder, so you don't get one. But it just goes to show people love a limited edition. They like to feel unique. Anything that people can do, which is a unique experience, limited edition merchandise is normally a win when it comes to rewards.
Yeah, and that variety of pricing of rewards as well was really good, no? From 5 to 20 to 50 to 100 to 1,000, have a good variety where people feel like there's everything for someone, no?
Yeah, perfect. I know you are super busy. Are you able to stick around for the end of the session, and we'll bring you back in for the Q&A, if that's okay?
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you so much, Martina.
Thank you.
Loads of great information there, and we'll see you in a little bit. Thank you.
Usually.
Some really wonderful advice there, and I have seen some more questions coming up in the chat box, so we will make sure we direct those to Martina a little bit later in the session. As I mentioned, in that resources tab, you can actually look at that page, their page in its entirety. Within that resources tab as well, under the links section, you have a link to the extra funding that's available at the moment, the fee structure for using crowdfunder, and a few other helpful resources there. And also under the documents, you've got a wonderful how to crowdfund for your sports club guide, which has been created with Sport England, so that we can give you every opportunity to be able to actually access and be approved for the extra funding that they have on offer. So we've talked about extra funding a lot today. The way that it works is essentially you sign up for free to crowdfunder.co.uk. You select that you are crowdfunding for your sports club or organisation, and that will funnel you into our wonderful sports section of our crowdfunder platform. Once you then start putting your page together, you will have a section all about extra funding. It's a tick box exercise, essentially. Firstly, you'll need to tick the box to allow us to share your details. So that's going to be your project details, the structure of your organisation, your page with our funding partners. And then you will go on to let us know who's likely to benefit from your project, what your potential project aims and outcomes are. Once you've completed that section, and a few of the other basic bits of information, so whereabouts you are in the country, what your organisation structure is set up like, we will then match you, or our computer system will match you with any available extra funding partners that we think would be a good fit for you. You can then go on to apply for those funds through your project dashboard. And as Martina pointed out, it's a lot more straightforward than your traditional kind of grant or bid writing. Definitely something that's worth exploring if you are eligible for any of those match funds. Now, to talk us through the match funding opportunity from Sport England is Nadine Karoma. Hi, Nadine, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Zoe. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for joining us, Nadine. Are you happy to just talk through the funding that's available at the moment from Sport England?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. So as Zoe mentioned, we have our Active Together Fund on the Crowdfunder platform. And this has been up and running for almost 4 years. And it was initially set up in response to the COVID pandemic. But over the years, the fund has evolved to incorporate returning to activity following the pandemic, any adverse weather that we've had, such as floods, and also the current energy and cost of living crises. The current focus of the fund is recovery, reinvention, and building resilience. So typical projects we've seen under the fund have been general maintenance works to facilities, equipment needs, and when returning to play, in coping with the increased demand for activity. So more people wanting to join your club or organisation or to get more involved in sports. Through this fund, we've supported over 800 projects from a wide range of sports, from cricket and rugby to more niche sports like korfball and American football. So whatever type of physical activity provision you've got, there's definitely room for your projects within this fund. This fund is available across England with match funding of up to 50% available, and that's to a maximum value of £10,000. We appreciate for many of you that this is probably your first time crowdfunding. So together with Crowdfunder, we have developed lots of resources, including that how to successfully crowdfund for your club guide that Zoe has made reference to. And it really kind of details there the things that you can add to your campaign page to make it really engaging for your crowd. I'll also just give you a few tips for our application process. So firstly, when considering running a crowdfunder campaign, it is a really good idea to put together a sort of project team if you can, as crowdfunding is quite time and labor intensive. It is a lot to just put on one person. So speak to people within your club or organization and get lots of people together if you can, because it's a lot easier to share the burden of the crowdfunder campaign. As I've also mentioned from that guide as well, before applying, try to get your campaign page looking really good as best as you can. So include your text on your page that helps tell the story of why you're crowdfunding. Include some images that support your story as to why you're crowdfunding. So for example, if you're looking to refurbish your facility, then include the pictures that show what the facility looks like now, so it can help sell the need for your projects to your crowd. And do also get some rewards on there if you can as well. So think about some things that you can offer from your club. As you saw from when Martina was sharing her story, they had some merchandise available. So think about things like that that you could offer from your club, or taster sessions or discounted membership, things like that. And as Martina also mentioned, do look at your local businesses for reward ideas as well, as they can definitely be some really interesting options to add to your campaign as well. And so also lastly, the email address that you include on your application form is what we're going to use to contact you. So do monitor that inbox or the junk inbox just to make sure that you haven't missed any correspondence from us, as we'll usually acknowledge when we've received your application and perhaps have some further feedback or tips for improvement for you. And that is the email address that we'll use. So do stay engaged with us and monitor those inboxes if you can. I'll now hand over to Zoe to discuss things in a bit more detail.
Thank you so much, Nadine. A really exciting fund, and we've been able to distribute a huge amount of money, haven't we, through this fund? So it's definitely worth engaging with that. Taking a look at the extra funding criteria as well on the extra funding page, and seeing if your club could be eligible, or your organisation. Thank you, Nadine. Are you happy to stick around for the Q&A as well? We'll probably have some questions coming through about the fund. Fab. Thank you so much. We'll see you in a moment.
See you later.
Okay, so the way in which the extra funding works, and this is specifically for the Sport England Fund. Some of our match funders do work in slightly different ways, but for the purpose of today's session, we're going to focus on Sport England and that Active Together Fund. So as Martina mentioned, ideally, we would like you to start putting that project page together. Use that how-to guide to actually create that really exciting, engaging page, add those rewards and a video if you possibly can. And whilst your page is still in draft, so you've not gone live with it yet, that's a really good time to apply for the extra funding. It means that Sport England can communicate with you if you need to make any amendments to the page before you get approval. It's also a really great position to be in when you do go live. Once you have that approval in place, it's a great thing to shout about to your potential supporters. So ideally, you secure that approval from Sport England, you then go live with your project and you start crowdfunding. You will have a few milestones to reach in order to have the pledge from Sport England land on your page. You need to raise 25% of your initial target. And of course, your target is something that you've decided upon. You've created that target. You need to reach 25% of that initial target. And that needs to be from a required amount of supporters. And you can see those required supporter numbers just in the table on this slide here. So it does depend on what your initial target amount is as to how many required supporters you will need in order to release that pledge. Once you've hit those first two milestones, so the 25% raised from the required amount of supporters, you need both of those things. You will then receive a pledge from Sport England onto your crowdfunding campaign page. You will see the amount that you've raised in your progress bar suddenly leap up by the amount of the Sport England pledge, and they will become a listed supporter. You'll have a great little banner that appears on your page in the supporters tab to say that Sport England has got behind this project with X amount of money by way of their pledge. At that point, you want to go back out to your potential supporters and you need to keep on crowdfunding until you reach 100% of your initial target. And at that point, you have secured your pledge from Sport England along with any other money that you've raised from your crowd. Now, if you still have some time live on your crowdfunding campaign, you can absolutely keep fundraising. You can start raising money towards something we call a stretch target, which is that additional goal beyond your initial target, which you can aim for. And that might be just those added extras to really bring your project to life. It could be that you've got a slightly different focus for any money that you raise above and beyond your initial target. So, for example, it could be that you're revamping the clubhouse and you're going to focus on the changing rooms and the toilets, and you're going to make them all accessible and they're really out of date. So that's going to be your main focus, and that's your initial target. If you hit your target and keep raising money, any of that additional money might go towards redoing the kitchen, for example, because you want to bring the whole thing up to date, but you're going to have it in achievable chunks. So always have in mind that you can overfund a project or raise money into a stretch target. Just to make you aware as well that we do also partner with Sport Wales. So there is a fund available for our neighbours over in Wales, which is up to £15,000 per project or up to 50% of the target. And again, that's looking at clubs and organisations that are looking to redevelop sports facilities to benefit the community. I mentioned about signing up to Crowdfunder UK and actually letting us know that you are a sports club or organisation, and that will funnel you into the correct area of our platform. The reason we want you to do this is it helps in lots of different ways. And one of them is that you will have access to a template in order to actually create your page. We know what works really well for getting that approval from Sport England. We know what works well in terms of the page format as well. So when you have access to this template, all you need to do is follow the prompts that we have there for you. So there will be titles such as who are we, community impact, why are we crowdfunding? Use those as prompts to create short bodies of text underneath those, incorporate images, and let us know about your club or your organisation and your project underneath those headings. Do feel free to change the headers though as well to make it a little bit more personal to your particular club. But ultimately, if you follow that format, you're in for a successful campaign page. Fill it with lots of images, create a short video if you can, just 1 to 1.5 minutes long, wherever possible, just letting us know who you are, why you're crowdfunding, what you're crowdfunding for, and how people can help you achieve your fundraising goals. If you can, include personalities from the club or organisation. If you've got a youth team, get them in front of the camera. They seem to be a lot more confident than us oldies. Have some fun with it as well. It is a way to showcase the club's personality. So do just that, and people will get behind the people in that video and the people behind the project as much as they do the project idea. This is just an overview of some of the interesting rewards that we've had come through the platform for sports clubs over the years. So as Martina mentioned there, the key thing with rewards is varying price points, so making things accessible, so low price rewards all the way through to maybe things in the hundreds or thousands, which might be more aimed at the business community or sponsorship, for example, and then things which are unique, things that are not your everyday offering. It's also a good idea to reach out to your local business community, as Nadine mentioned, and actually start thinking about the types of things that they might want to offer. Think about a traditional raffle that you might hold, and you might go around the local town asking for, products or services to be donated. Rather than raffling them off in the traditional sense, you would list these things, these items or these services as a reward on your page, and you'd give them a specific price point. That price point ideally needs to be less than you would be paying on the high street. So it's a discounted service, it's a discounted product, or it's a limited edition merchandise, for example, things that you can only get from the crowdfunder, or you can only get at a discount for the duration of the crowdfunder by getting it from the campaign page itself. We've had some really interesting things like we've got metal detecting experience, we've got wine tours, we've got MOTs, we've got shirt sponsorship, all sorts of things that are not just directed at the sport and at the club members. Have things that you can generate yourselves, which will have a real appeal with your existing members or people that take part in the sport, but think about that wider community too. What would appeal to people that don't necessarily engage with you as an organisation already? And then, of course, you can multiply your crowdfunding campaign where people can raise money on your behalf. And you can see here that Chinley and Bucksworth Centre did that really well. They had quite a few fundraisers. They engaged with the local primary school who ran a non-uniform day for them, and all of those donations went directly onto this non-uniform day fundraising page. There were bake sales. You had people kind of running certain distances as a fundraiser as well. Utilize the networks you have at your disposal. Get in touch with people that can get behind you and fundraise. It can be a really rewarding thing for them to do to support you in that way. Okay, we have a huge amount of learning and support available to everybody looking to crowdfund. And with sports, we have some really, really great advice there for you as well. So we provide webinars such as this and drop-in sessions each week, so you can come along, ask any questions about crowdfunding. We have some really great online learning guides and resources, and that how-to guide, which you have access to throughout this session, and I will make sure I send it round to everybody as well. Our knowledge hub is full of really useful hints and tips and guides, everything from how to create an engaging page and make a project video through to how to write a press release. Everything you need to know for each stage of your campaign is in that knowledge hub. We've got some tailored email advice. So for you guys, it will all be tailored to do with sport and community and sports-based projects. We've got a great customer support team. That team have created the whole help centre. So the chances are the answer to your question is in that help centre already. If you cannot find your answer, or you're struggling with the technical element of putting the crowdfunder together, then by all means you can contact our customer support team. And then we have a live project dashboard. That dashboard is where you can manage every single aspect of your campaign through applying for that extra funding. Maybe you want to extend the project or close early or add or edit rewards. There's all sorts of things that you can do on that dashboard. So do make friends with it and utilize that throughout the whole of the campaign too. Okay, thank you. I flew through those last slides. I want to make sure that we've got enough time for a decent Q&A because I've seen some brilliant questions coming through. So if I could please welcome back onto screen Martina and Nadine, and I'll get through as many of those as we can. Thank you for sticking with us, guys. Let me see what questions have been coming through. And now's the time, if you haven't put your question in there already, do please pop a question into the chat box and we'll get through as many as we can. Okay. So somebody has asked, what is the average length of time for a crowdfunding campaign? Martina mentioned that theirs was only around kind of 3 weeks, which is incredible, to be quite honest with you, to have achieved what they did in that amount of time. We recommend from a crowdfunding standpoint that around 4 to 6 weeks is ideal. So if you can manage 4 weeks, awesome. 6 weeks is still all good, but somewhere between that is like the sweet spot. The reason we say that is ideally it's quite a short exercise in fundraising. I'm sure Martina will agree that it can take up quite a lot of your day to day. You live, breathed it like the 3 weeks. And planning is key, you know, making sure you've got a lot of it planned out. So dedicating a similar amount of time to actually planning the project as you are to running it, so that you're not having to be too reactive. You can kind of go, okay, now's the time that we're going to do that social media post that we scheduled and planned, or now's the time we need to start talking about that reward that we're going to add on to the project. Having all of that ready is a really good place to be. The other thing I would say is, for some of you, you might be tempted to run longer campaigns thinking that, you know, you've got a big target. If we run it for longer, we're going to raise more money. Doesn't necessarily work like that. So with every single campaign, people get excited and support you when you launch your project because you've done the hard work and you've told them it's coming and they're all really excited. They will then kind of lose interest a little bit and they won't engage as much kind of in that middle section of the campaign. So it's a bit like a U. So everyone's excited and then it tails off a little bit and then it ramps up towards the end when you're about to close. That happens naturally throughout most crowdfunding campaigns. And the idea is to have enough planning in place with varied promotion, maybe adding on extra rewards. Maybe you've got some things like events happening in the social calendar to minimize that drop in engagement. If you run a lengthy campaign, what you're risking is that dip in the middle just elongates, just gets longer, and that becomes harder to try and actually combat. So unless you've got things happening in your calendar where you know that actually we need to run it for a long amount of time because we've got these things happening within the club's calendar or the organization's calendar of events that we're going to utilize for crowdfunding, I wouldn't suggest doing it for a long amount of time. Nadine, from Sport England perspective, you're kind of similar thinking, aren't you, that you would rather it was a shorter campaign that was kind of very proactive and had a lot of momentum rather than a longer kind of drawn out campaign?
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree with everything you've said, Zoe. The only thing I would add, if it is the case that in the middle of your campaign you realize that there are some community events that you could utilize towards your crowdfunder campaign to get some more supporters. If it is the case that your kind of deadline is coming up but you have things planned, have a conversation with us. We are willing to allow you to extend, providing that you have a decent plan in place to combat all the things that Zoe said could negatively affect the campaign.
Yeah, definitely. And you are, as project owners, you are in control of how long you're setting it for, whether you need to extend that. If you've been approved for extra funding, it's always good to have a conversation with the funding partners about any kind of need to extend. Ultimately, you will be able to extend your project up to, I think, 10 weeks yourself. And anything beyond that, we would need to facilitate that for you. But it's absolutely doable. There just needs to be, for your sake, as much as the funding partners, a kind of good reason to be doing that. Otherwise, you might just find it's not as fruitful as you'd hoped by extending it. Okay, let me just have...
On that note, Zoe, I believe we did it for 4 weeks, actually. I think that the 4 weeks was the good amount of time, not too short, not too long.
Yeah. I mean, 4 weeks definitely sounds, 3 weeks to have raised that money is like.
Yeah, no, I was looking into it. I think we did an extra week.
But even 4 weeks, you know, if you think really, when the majority of people here are used to kind of, you know, as I say, grants or bids or what have you that come around in rounds, you did something for 4 weeks and then kind of like 7 to 10 days later, you've got the money that you raised. It's quite a quick turnaround. So it can work really well if you've got fundraising deadlines or things that need to happen. We have quite a lot of like emergency response crowdfunding where maybe there's been an issue like flooding or something and they need the money now to actually make something happen. Like it's a very quick process all round. We've had one here. So in regards to the limited edition merch, what other items did you have other than those mentioned already, Martina?
Well, the ropes that I mentioned had our logo embroidered. For example, there was a belly board that there's a business, a local business, no, that we know, Dick Pierce, that they do belly boards. So we asked them to do a bit of a custom made one as well. Beanies, and what else did we do? That was like, I think it was mainly those ones.
You did things as well, which I think were really great. So things like name on a seat. You could name a seat in the cafe and tickets to the opening. That was a good one, I think.
Yeah, we did like a specific reward that it's called crowdfunder event for crowdfunder supporters only. And that I think came with the name in the chair as well. And that was quite popular. Then a golden ticket also. The golden ticket is like a higher price reward that also offers lots of cool benefits. The lock-in for crowdfunder as well. And sponsorships are included as well. Yeah, and just asking support from different businesses and maybe some distributors that we already had that were already providing us with product, ask them for donations, see if they could donate us any products, and yeah, and keep pushing, I would say. Grip tapes as well. We did some grip tapes that had like the logo on. But there's so much more that I wanted to do and we couldn't do, you know, like special stickers maybe, or like key rings that also could be an option, or magnets, and just getting creative, really, no? I did saw as well another question from someone, Ben, about asking accountancies and any discounts in accountants. I ask every time for discounts. Accountant, plumber, electrician, anyone that like we need as like a provider or supplier in the skate park. I always give them the opportunity to be part of the community too. Like literally yesterday, I got an electrician coming, and if he wants to have a sign in the skate park as well, or if he wanted to have a reward and we offer a sign, it's just about trying to find those people that are really keen in the project, have something that connects them to that project, either a kid or their past experience as kids, and they always feel like they want to make themselves part of that project too, no? And having a sign or not having a sign, just being involved kind of, yeah, helps in getting discounts as well in everything. Not just accountants, but yeah, it's always good to ask the question.
That's half the battle, and I think that comes down to all of the crowdfunding campaign stuff. It's about having the conversation. It's about talking to people and saying, we want you to be part of this with us. Yes, we need to raise the money. If you can donate, that's awesome, but would you like to be a part of this by offering a reward or getting on board in that way, or having a fundraiser or sharing it? So many ways people can.
So many.
So
good to ask. Rather ask than yeah, they know is already there. So while we ask, it's kind of, yeah.
I love that.
Sometimes.
I know that you need to shoot off, Martina. It has gone 1 o'clock, and I appreciate that we are running over a little bit. For those of you that are happy to, I'd like to carry on for a couple more minutes because we've got some more kind of funding related questions that I'd love to ask you, Nadine. Martina, if you need to shoot off, that's absolutely fine. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank
Can't wait
you.
to see
Have
the
a good
park.
day. Thank you.
Later. Thank you. Bye. Okay, thank you, everybody. Let's just plow through these ones. So in terms of what can be classed as a club or a sport, Nadine, we do have this come up quite often. Would you be able to clarify on that one, please?
Yeah, so Active Together isn't just available to like your traditional sports clubs like cricket clubs, swimming clubs. Providing you're a not-for-profit organization and you have some kind of physical activity offer, then you can definitely be considered under the fund, providing you're eligible in terms of governance. So it's not just strictly people who do sports 100% of the time, even if your focus is on something else, but you have some physical activity, then yes, we can consider you.
Fabulous, thank you. In terms of kind of more eligibility style questions, you can always contact Sport England directly, and their email is on the slide at the moment, and we will include that as well in the follow-up email. So if you've got any really specific questions about your particular eligibility as a club or organisation, please do forward them directly to the team at Sport England. In terms of a club that has already raised funds towards, they've been fundraising for a little while towards actually making their project idea happen, and now they're thinking about a crowdfunder, would those funds that they've already raised, if they were to pay the funding milestone?
So anything that's come before a campaign would be classed as retrospective funding. So unfortunately, that couldn't be added to your campaign. But what I would say is perhaps look at what your total project costs are and how much you've raised so far, and then just adjust your crowdfunder total. So let's say, for example, your total cost was 30,000 and you already had 5,000 raised towards that from previous fundraising. Then set your crowdfunder target to be 25,000. So you still have what you've raised offline and it's separate from the crowdfunder, because we can't match fund against retrospective funds. So just adjust the total and see what you can do.
That's great advice, thank you. And this one from Andy: what is the definition of a supporter? Is it someone who contributes financially by the crowdfunding campaign or simply expresses their support for the project? So we use the term supporter as somebody who has donated directly to your crowdfunding campaign page. There's even a tab on your page which is titled supporters, and that's got under there everybody that's donated or pledged so far. And then we talk about potential supporters, so those people who haven't donated yet or pledged yet, and how you're going to then engage with them. So supporters are by definition people that have made a contribution directly to your page. Okay, from Chris: can the club contribute to its own fund? For example, we ran an open meeting where the fees would go towards the project. Could these be used? And is there a maximum the club can put in? Thank you. We do see this happen, don't we? Quite often with sports clubs, because there is a lot of things that happen whereby people might pay in cash on the night, those kinds of things. Our advice would always be, wherever possible, funnel those donations direct to the page. You can do things like print out a QR code, which is associated with your project, and have that where people would normally donate in cash, so that they can actually scan that and be kind of prompted to go straight to the page. In terms of if a club or organisation does have a little bit of money raised for an event or something, can they pay that on themselves, Nadine? And would there be an upper limit as to how many times they could do that, or the amount?
Yeah, so it is kind of on a case-to-case basis. So we do ask that you have a conversation with us beforehand. As you said, so it could be some sort of offline fundraising. We do like to ensure that the fundraising has occurred during the course of your campaign, and it's specifically for your campaign. So definitely have a conversation with us beforehand. And in terms of a maximum amount, we don't have something that's set in stone. It would be quite relative to your campaign target. So for example, if your target was £5,000, we wouldn't want to see a club adding half of that, for example, 2,500 themselves. So definitely have a conversation with us, as it's quite unique to each club and situation. So it's not impossible, but definitely something that needs to be discussed with us.
Perfect, thank you. And this one again from Chris. How is it decided how much of the, or up to the 50% that Sport England would put in or would pledge?
Initially, it's based on where your club or organisation is located. So England is divided up into indices of multiple deprivation. So we would base it on that and whatever your campaign or projects is targeting. So our Active Together Fund, we have specific priority groups that we are looking to support within the fund. Everyone's eligible for funding, but there are specific priority groups that were disproportionately affected by the COVID pandemic. So if your campaign is targeting one of those priority groups, then it's possible that you might be eligible automatically for 50%, but for everybody else, it's initially where your club is based, and then we look at perhaps what the focus of your campaign is. But even if you don't get the full 50%, don't let that put you off, because providing you're eligible, we can still offer some support. It just be a slightly less percentage, so 30%, 40%, for example, but definitely still eligible for funding. So don't let that put you off.
Amazing, thank you. I'm not sure if you are able to answer this one, Nadine. Chris has also asked, what percentage of campaigns are approved for crowdfunding by Sport, well, for the Active Together Fund, I would imagine, by Sport England? So in terms of applications versus approvals, put you on the spot.
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I will say that our team here is quite dedicated to the fund and supporting as many clubs and organizations as we can. So providing you kind of listen to the feedback and advice that we're giving you, we will work with you throughout the entire process to ensure that your campaign is one that we can support and one that does end up being successful. So just stay engaged with us and hopefully you will crowdfund successfully.
So true. And just you probably covered this a little bit earlier, but just making people aware that if it's a decline in the first instance, so if they put in their application and it does get declined, as long as the project idea and the organisation structure and everything kind of fits the criteria and is eligible, Sport England are really, really engaged at communicating with those sports projects and giving them all of the advice and feedback in order to actually bring the application and the page up to a standard where it will get approved. So not to be disheartened if they do get declined in the first instance. It's not always an absolute no, is it? Quite often it's we want to support you, we need to see these things happen, and the amendments made on the page. And we at Crowdfunder are also here to help you to kind of get those approvals and then go on to success as well. So there's a good team of people around you to get you there. Okay, I think we have run over a fair bit, but we've covered off a huge amount of information today. Hopefully we've answered all of your questions. Do feel free as well to book onto a session with us, come to a drop-in session if you have any other questions regarding your particular crowdfunding campaign or crowdfunding in general. I always recommend taking a look at some other projects as well. So go along and explore the platform and see what other projects within your kind of sporting sector or within your local area has been approved for Sport England funding, or potentially are just crowdfunding. It might be a local business or organisation that you can go along and have a chat with and see, you know, how they found it and maybe get some hints and tips from them as well. Look at the extra funding available, absolutely. And then ultimately click that start crowdfunding button and start piecing your projects together. And the only way you kind of can find out more about doing this is to actually kind of take that plunge and make that start. And then there's so much resource available to help you to go on to success. We can't wait to see you all go live with your projects and to hear more about your wonderful ideas. For now, though, we will wrap it up, and all remains to say is thank you so much, Nadine, for joining me today. If people have any direct questions for Sport England, as I mentioned, we will make sure I put that email address into the follow-up email as well, so you can contact them directly. Thank you so much, and good luck with your campaigns.
Thanks, Zoe. Thanks, everyone.